Everything I've done for my family.
For the last 10 years, all I done was kill. I killed for my family. I killed anybody that got in my way.
Family and who you're born with is who you die for.
What's up, Boston? How are we this lovely Thursday morning? Boston, you can do better than that. I said, how are we? At least that second time got the Ghostbuster to yell. He still didn't clap. He yelled, though. I appreciate that. You want to clap for me? Stand up and clap right now. All right, everybody be more like the Ghostbuster. What's up, everybody? Welcome to your Mafia, the Old Country PAX East panel. My name's Greg Miller from Kinda Funny Games, and who's been to a PAX panel before? A lot of you raised your hands. That means you've been to bad PAX panels, all right? Today's about energy. You get to see stuff from the game that no one's seen. You get to hear straight from the developers. That's exciting. So when you see or hear something you like, I need you cheering, all right? 3, 2, 1, go! And when you hear something you don't like the game's delayed, you boo. But the game's not actually delayed. That's what I like to see, everybody. We're going to have a look at the gameplay, of course. We're going to have some spotlights with the developers, and then we are going to get to pick the brains of Hangar 13. But before all of that, let's watch some really cool videos, okay?
Come in.
Bravery is not common in this world, and so loyalty, honor, obedience, they set the man apart from the rest. You took care of Messina, but this matter is not yet resolved. Will you help me bring it to a close?
Of course. Tanto risi. You again.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick Baines, President of Hangar 13. We hope you enjoyed this new look at gameplay in Mafia the Old Country. We're just 3 short months away now from getting this game in your hands, and we can't wait. Mafia the Old Country is an origin story for the Mafia universe, and as such, is both a step forward and a return to the fundamentals of the franchise. The heart of Mafia has always been deep, immersive storytelling, and Mafia the Old Country is no exception. It's a premium experience in the vein of early Mafia games, with a linear narrative set against the stunning, authentic backdrop of 1900 Sicily. That focus has allowed us to deliver a classic organised crime drama in the period authentic Mafia rules and traditions of the era. And, as you just saw, we've made some exciting gameplay updates. Whether you're using a knife or a gun, using stealth or in a shootout, this is brutal and grounded in all the best ways. It's all going to pull you in from every angle, pushing the franchise forward in a location and time painstakingly created with the utmost authenticity and detail using Unreal Engine 5. Stick around, because next up is our development team, who have loads of awesome behind-the-scenes insights on how we brought this title to life. And stay tuned between now and August, as we'll have even more to tell and show. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Come in.
Our top goal for every Mafia game is to deliver the promise to a player that you're going to play a classic mob movie. Mafia the Old Country is a linear crime drama set against a beautiful Sicilian backdrop. The first step for us was to make sure that we were nailing all of the things that players expect from a Mafia game. The quality of its storytelling, how immersive it is, how authentic it is. Previous Mafia games have been set in big American cities. We've taken the action and we've put our story in rural Sicily, in the place where the Mafia began.
You really feel like you're transported into another time. It feels really unique and different, but yet really familiar. Players are really going to enjoy that aspect of it.
Our entry point for making these crime dramas is always the protagonist. We wanted to make sure that our main character, Enzo Favara, lives up to the standard which we've set in the past, and I hope in some ways even exceeds that.
All of the men in this room are bound by blood.
Enzo grows up in a sulfur mine. He's one of a bunch of children that are sold to the mine owners at this point in history in Sicily. Their life expectancy is short and they're essentially seen as disposable.
Enzo turns to crime as a means to make something of himself. The odds are stacked against him. So what does he do? He sees an opportunity for himself to gain some status, to gain some respect.
Do you wish to commit to this family?
I do.
Swearing the oath is the chance for him to finally be accepted. He's found a family. It's the thing he's been searching for his entire life, but it comes at a cost.
I think players are in for an emotional roller coaster. The high stakes of the Mafia life present opportunities for us as storytellers to take players and put players through the ringer, really, in terms of what happens to the character, what happens to them in the game.
You again.
What makes a really compelling gameplay experience is the mix of the high-intensity combat, cover play, cover shooting, set by these beautiful cinematics that make what you do in the combat so much more meaningful because you're fighting for something you really believe in.
Authenticity and immersion are key. And so we wanted to take that philosophy from the storytelling and make sure that it was consistent in the gameplay.
You know, whether you come for that core cover combat shooting experience or that white knuckle driving experience, we have that in Mafia the Old Country, but it's unique.
There's some downbeats, there's some deep storytelling moments, and then there's some like high intensity action. And I think that's what makes Mafia missions and the general experience so interesting, is that we're constantly trying to change that roller coaster experience that you're on.
Enzo's proving himself with guns, and we wanted the combat to feel like there was a scarcity of resources, so you have to be more tactical in the way that you approach combat. The knife has been an integral part of gameplay. It's a part of Sicilian culture.
We wanted our gameplay to be immersive, to have a life or death kind of vibe. So when players are in a knife duel, when they're in a gunfight, they're genuinely fearing for their lives.
My flesh must burn like this saint if I do not keep my oath.
Bringing 1900 Sicily to life for us, it infuses every aspect of the development. It's about the characters, it's about the music, it's about the story, it's about the setting, it's about the vistas, it's about the vehicles, it's everything. It always starts with research, it always starts with immersing ourselves in the subject matter. So whether that's reading every crime book around the Sicilian Mafia, watching all of the movies, even driving the cars, firing the weapons, and then translating that into the game, that's the development experience.
We even sent some folks out to Sicily. We were then able to take all of those experiences and try to translate it into an on-screen experience, but also a story. And those two things are woven together in a way that I think players are going to really enjoy.
Bravery is not common in this world, and so
the Mafia that we see in Mafia the Old Country is much different than the Mafia that we see in some of the other Mafia games. It's a time-honored tradition steeped in secrecy, and there's this sort of deep honor that we see within the Teresi family and within the characters there.
The characters' relationships with each other, the way they behave, is very much influenced by that setting and that cultural difference.
This is a distinctive experience that I've never played before, and I'm sure that players are going to feel the same.
Mafia the Old Country is our first Unreal 5 game in the studio, and it's particularly suited to the Sicilian setting.
We've really been able to push the boat out in terms of sort of the real tiny details on everything.
You know, one of the big ones for me is metahuman. You have characters that have really lifelike expressions, micro details. You know, many times when I'm watching the game, especially on a big screen in 4K, I start to forget that they're characters rendered in an engine. They just look like real characters in a movie. I think that's the level of immersion that we want, and it allows people, I think, to really suspend their disbelief and go along for the ride.
Enzo is beautifully rendered in the game, and I think he's one of the most compelling game characters we've seen for a long time.
The thing I'm most excited about for Mafia the Old Country is finally getting the game in players' hands.
The story pulls you through really quickly, and at the end, it takes your breath away, and it's one that you're not going to want to spoil for your friends.
The visuals and the storytelling are absolutely next level.
Our setting's completely distinctive. Our story's completely unique. This is a game that you haven't played before. The best crime stories have unforgettable twists, and this game's no exception. Players are in for a treat.
Welcome, Enzo.
And that's our panel, everyone. Oh, I thought you'd boo that. No, it was a boo moment. It was a boo moment. You got to get better at this. Ladies, gentlemen, and NBs, please put your hands together for, of course, the team of development leads from Hangar 13, the people making Mafia the Old Country. All right, let's start with first day of school kind of stuff. Who are you and what do you do?
Hello, Greg. I'm Nick Baines. I'm the studio president at Hangar 13.
I'm Alex Cox. I'm the game director of Mafia the Old Country.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tomáš Rybíček. I'm the cinematic director.
Of course, I want to dive in to Mafia the Old Country and talk all about this. It's the new game, it's the hotness, it's that. But we would be remiss if we didn't call out at the very beginning, the little trailer, the tease of this has been 23 years of Mafia games. Nick, what does that mean to you?
Well, it's incredible. I think, to work on a franchise and a series of games that are this well loved by the players and also by the developers. It's like people join this studio to work on this game and there's so much passion for it. And the opportunity to take it forwards to a whole new story is something that's really huge and important to us. But something also that people don't always realize when they hear about Hangar 13 and they think about Mafia 3 or they think about Mafia Definitive Edition, but Hangar 13...
Definitive Edition, come on! I was having dinner with Ben Starr last night and he was like, no one talks enough about Definitive... I'm like, no one talks enough about Definitive Edition.
I agree. But the thing is, people don't realize necessarily that Hangar 13 has a lot of people that worked on Mafia all the way back to the very beginning. We've got studios in the UK and in the Czech Republic who, by the way, they are hard at work on this game right now, but they've taken a break to tune in to this. So big shout out to those guys. And so yeah, it's just something that it really is in the the DNA of the studio.
Sure.
And I mean, I've been here for like 7-8 years. The two gentlemen to my left have been working on the projects for much, much longer, and they have Mafia running through their veins. So,
Alex, how long have you been working on the project?
I've been working on Mafia since 2007, so I'm a relative spring chicken compared to some of those who've been around for a little longer than me. But yeah, my first game was my first Mafia game was Mafia 2, which is still very close to my heart, very dear to my heart.
Hell yeah!
And yeah, I mean, I was one of the fans that Nick mentioned. I remember distinctly playing the first Mafia game 23 years ago. So I played it. My first experience was as a player. I fell in love with the franchise then. It was really, if you guys remember the first Mafia, it was one of the first games that really went hard on a movie-like cinematic experience. It really blew me away at the time. I just left uni. I was a film student, right? So I was really big into the whole idea of games as movies at the time. And so when I finally joined the franchise a few years later, I was immensely excited and still am to be working on something. And I'm very glad that people still want to play those kind of games today. So 18 years of time on the franchise for me, which even after all that time, I've not managed to make my way onto the box art, unlike my friend Thomas here to the left, who is featured on...
You're the box art?
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened.
What do we have an accent? What does that mean, he was the boxer?
Like one of the artists just took the photo.
Oh my
we had
God.
fun, so yeah. That's me, 25 years ago. As a young mafioso.
So not so much a spring chicken. You've been around, Thomas.
Little bit. So yeah, it's been incredible experience working on all the Mafia titles. And what excites me the most is that everything we learned on the journey, we can now bring and use it on this new origin story and elevate it to next level of the storytelling.
I mean, that's a great transition. So then Nick as president, big highfalutin title, even though you've barely been here a minute.
That's right.
What are you taking from Mafia 1, 2, and 3 when you look at Mafia the Old Country, when you guys set off to do something that is so radically different?
Yeah, well, it's radically different in some ways, and in other ways it's very much still in the same vein as the other games. It has the same DNA. I think when we set out to make a Mafia game, and when we think about what a Mafia game is, we really identify, you know, what the DNA of that experience is, and there's certain pillars that we look at when we're deciding exactly what it is we want to feature, or how we want to, you know, what kind of gameplay, what kind of story. So, for example, you know, historical pulp fiction, brutal worlds of organized crime, gifted anti-heroes, setting as a main character, and themes of power. I think if you played other Mafia games, you'll recognize all of those things as really key elements of them. I think, you know, all of those are definitely true in all the games. So when we look at what's next, we look back to this and we think, you know, how does what we're making now fit in with those and deliver the kind of Mafia experience the players want and that we want to make?
So then let's move on. Let's talk about Mafia the Old Country. Everybody's excited for it. I think what immediately jumps off at me, right, as a fan is, okay, it's a prequel. It's a new location. It seems like a new tone. Am I wrong about that, Alex? I'm going off of what I've seen here.
Well, the tone is, the tone is a little different to the other games, of course, but the setting is different to the other games. So that's the reason why the tone feels a little different. It's more, you know, it's got a kind of adventure vibe to it. Again, you saw in the video there, you know, riding through the countryside, chasing that cart, for example, from the trailer. It's the tone and the setting of the game has been, you know, tailored around a 1900s Sicilian setting. You know, we're not in a city anymore like the Mafia trilogy titles. We're out in the countryside. We are in a time before Tommy guns and such like, right? So we're in a kind of an old, we're just in a different age. So that's kind of like infused all aspects of the design and the creative direction. And also, this is an origin story. You know, we've gone back to the start of the timeline of the franchise story. You know, we're still in the Mafia universe, but we've gone back a little bit of time to right to the very beginnings, but also not just the beginning of that story, but the story of organized crime. You know, like we all have a good idea, I think, of like what the American Mafia looks like from films and TV shows. Probably less of a clear idea about what the Sicilian Mafia is or what that meant, but that is the start of it all. Sure. They invented the term, you know. So that's what our story is about here. It's going back to the start there, exploring what caused the Sicilian Mafia to sort of originate in the first place, and you know, set the course for what happens next later in the Mafia story.
Thomas, I think, you know, looking at the trailer, the gameplay, and of course the cinematics and stuff, what really pops is the performances right now. Obviously, when we get on sticks, it'll be a different feeling. Nobody's getting on mouse and keyboard. When we get on sticks, it'll be a different feeling. Oh, there's an undercurrent of a boo there. Talk to me about what it was approaching casting for this. How do you go and do something that's a period piece, but is being done in modern times? What is that like?
We had a very strong casting team behind us to help us to filter down all the candidates to final selection. We spent over like 2 months interviewing all the talents, having the calls, to making sure that we are selecting the best possible fit for each of the role. And I have to say that we are really lucky that we ended up with our first choices for each of the role of the main character. You know, every game is very unique. Every Mafia game is very unique. And it's in a big part due to the cast and especially to the lead. So casting Enzo was very critical to us. We were looking for someone who can embody the specific Enzo's journey and help us to set the distinct tone of the narrative, you know. And authenticity is also a huge part of our project. So casting for 90s Sicily meant that we had to pay close attention to all the details, nuances, even in the dialogues. So we hired a dialogue coach who helped us to and actors to mentor and make sure that all the dialogues were feeling the natural and authentic to this period.
Awesome. Alex, piggybacking off of that, we're talking about cast. We're talking about how close they have to work together because, of course, the Mafia is all about family. What is the family in this narrative? What are we getting into?
Yeah, it's a good question because, like, you know, all of these crime stories. I mean, you know, it's about family in some way, a crime family, but also family as it means to most of us, right? You know, the people you love and care about. And the drama in most crime stories is about that, isn't it? Like the difference and the you know, between those two types of families and the compromises, the decisions that the characters have to make at the center of the story to trade off between those two things. In our story, Enzo begins the story. He has no family. He's an orphan. He grows up in a sulfur mine in a very terrible environment. And when he finally finds his way into the Teresi crime family, he finds a sense of belonging, something he's been looking for all the time. But then it's about how much. But then, you know, he's not quite sure what he wants. He wants a sense of belonging. He wants to fit in somewhere. A gang seems to offer him that kind of that environment. But then he also has some, other inclinations as to what he might want from his life. So what's he prepared to sacrifice for his family? I mean, that's a big question around the whole story.
And it'll be answered in Mafia, the Old Country. You're a tough one to crack, Alex. All right. My notes apparently say that, of course, the cast members have sent us messages that we are ready to show you. Are you wanting to see cast member messages? PAX these! Ghostbuster seems iffy, but everybody else is in. Let's watch him.
Hi, my name is Riccardo Frascari, and I play Enzo Favara in Mafia: The Old Country. Enzo is a kid who gets a really hard start in life working in the sulfur mines. But through how his work and his resilience, he earns a chance to redeem himself with the Teresi family. That's where he learns the real values of family and loyalty. Enzo is Caruso. Caruso is an orphan who was sold to slavery when he was a boy, who never knew family, and the Teresis give him a chance to be somebody, to belong, and to make something out of himself. Enzo's characteristics are definitely his strength, his loyalty, his resilience, and his determination. He's very determined to find his place in the world and to claim his spot as a free man. His strongest desire is to be a free man and to live his own life as he wants.
Nick, he was very handsome.
He's very handsome.
Is the entire cast as handsome?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And before we talk about Enzo a minute, I just want to say, firstly, Riccardo has put in an amazing performance. I think the whole cast are incredible, and I think the casting's been, like Thomas was saying, the casting was incredible for this game, and I genuinely think, you know, we see it in game and we're like blown away ourselves, right? It's incredible. And also, what's also cool, Riccardo is a really, really nice guy. He actually flew out to our studio in the Czech Republic about a month ago.
Wow.
And hung out with the team and played the game. And yeah, so he's a top guy, as well as being what I think is going to be Enzo is one of, I think, going to be the next fan favorite character. His story is really emotional. You see him going from real rags to riches, but he's, you know, he really starts at the bottom in those sulfur mines. It's a pretty horrific start to life. And yeah, he has some highs and some lows as he goes along the story, but I think everyone's going to love it. I really do think, yeah, he's up there with the best Mafia main characters.
That's a highfalutin praise. All right, that's a good list of characters right there.
Hold me to that.
Okay, hold them to it, everybody. Let's see who we have next. This is where you boo. You can boo here. Boo. Thank you. You're getting it. You're getting it, everybody. And that's our panel. Well, I hope you're happy, everybody. You ruined PAX East. Panel number 3 of the day, and everything dies? Me? I'm not pressing the buttons. I didn't do anything. Good Lord. All right, let's reboot the thing there. You know what I mean? That's okay, everybody. No. What? Windows need to update.
Hey,
Will there be a boot?
I'm Karina Conti, and I play the character of Isabella Torrisi in Mafia: The Old Country. Isabella is intelligent, courageous, and passionate. While she is born into privilege, she's overcome hardship in life. And I think More than anything, more than even longing for her father's approval and love, I think she longs to drink deeply of life. I think she longs to fulfill her potential, and she's frustrated that the male-dominated society into which she was born doesn't allow her to do that. Isabella is a woman born ahead of her time. She is a loving daughter, but she's fiercely independent, and so she longs for freedom from the structures of conservative society and from her father, Don Teresi.
Alex, talk to me about Isabella.
Well, yes. I mean, Isabella is, as Karina there mentioned in the...
Why are you afraid of that microphone?
Huh?
You start here talking to it, and you go away from it. I don't need it. Talk to the microphone, Alex. There's people here.
Is this better?
That's better.
Yeah, that's better. Okay. Isabella, as Karina mentioned in the trailer, is Don Teresi's daughter, and it really comes back to that family thing we were talking about a moment ago. She represents the other side of the family question to Enzo. You know, like, is he going to commit to the crime family, or is there something else that he can commit to, a family more in a conventional sense, which is going to be closer to his heart? Karina's performance is absolutely incredible. Again, I'm really, really looking forward for people to see her story and Isabella's story as she's playing, as they're playing through the game. So, yeah, that's another standout performance, I think.
I'm glad they got to see her message.
Yeah, I mean...
Hey, round of applause for real to the PAX text making it happen. If you're a Kind of Funny fan, you know we wouldn't have come back. We would have just walked off. That's it. Go get lunch, Kevin. Before we end the messages, we have one here, the final one from the Don himself. Can we roll that?
Hi, my name is Johnny Santiago, and I voiced the character of Bernardo Torrisi in Mafia: The Old Country. Playing Don Torrisi was definitely an honor. He is a very complex and conflicted man with a brutal, animalistic core, which made it so much fun. Is constantly trying to find the right balance of his family, his business, and making sure that loyalty is above all things honored. Bernardo is driven by his legacy and making sure that his family is taken care of, most especially his daughter, and that what he leaves behind for her and the family is better than what he was given or came into. I hope you enjoy the game.
Did he walk in, Tomas? You're like, well, that's the Don. He sounds like the Don. He looks like the Don. It's the Don.
Johnny, I would just, correct him slightly because he said he's the voice of the Don Teresi. He created the full character, obviously, the full performance, and he did great and awesome job, as you can see. Don Teresi is a patriarch of Teresi's crime family. He's very powerful and imposing person who commands respect and expects everyone to follow the Mafia code. Don offers Enzo life-changing opportunities. However, this comes in price of total obedience and loyalty to him and his family.
Amazing. I think it's important, obviously, the cast of characters we're going to play as, interact with, all that stuff, but as you guys called out, Nick, in the front with your pillars and stuff, the setting has to be a character as well, right? So talk to me about 1900s Sicily for the Old Country. It's not something you can just go visit, like, well, you can, but it's not like it was. Like, how did you go about going back in time to do this?
Going back in time would have been hard. But
yeah. That would have been fun.
I think the thing with Sicily, which is incredible, is as a setting for a Mafia game, it's totally brand new and fresh. It is an incredibly beautiful land. The countryside is amazing. The architecture is stunning. But it's the birth of organised crime. It's where there's a dark underbelly behind the doors. There's bad things happening, and in the shadows, there's nasty people. So I think that kind of contrast is really, really memorable. And for us, as always with Mafia games, authenticity is really key. So we went out there, we've got a ton of reference. We really made it as authentic as possible. But to be honest, it's great. There's not that much artistic or creative interpretation required because it is such an amazing, larger-than-life, beautiful environment. So yeah, it's a really, really great setting for this kind of story.
Thomas, what is the research? You guys went there, right? We saw that in some of the videos.
Nick mentioned like the authenticity is a really high priority to us, so the research was very extensive. But the best for us was how to immerse ourselves, was to send the dev team over to Sicily, you know, to walk the streets, to feel the climate, to talk to the people. Eventually, we even talked to the local historians to learn what the life was like back then. What we love on Sicily is the contrast between beautiful country of the Sicily and the harsh life conditions the people had to face back then. It was even more obvious when we went down to the sulfur mines and learned how brutal and dangerous the life was there just to survive. Actually, you were there on the trip, so...
Yeah, it's a tough life as a game developer, going to touring around Sicily.
To holiday, I was not that lucky.
It was, I mean, the hotel didn't have a spa or anything, but everything else was great.
Good job.
Yeah, no, it was great. We get, you know, to really represent the authenticity of the environment, as you say, Thomas, about like creating a game experience that's very immersive, that really transports you back to the time period and particularly to that location. It's very important to actually go and see it for yourself.
Is the setting working with like the themes you're trying to go with family and all that?
Well, there's plenty of there's a whole range of stuff there. So when we went to Sicily, we visited sulfur mines, we visited in the Greek ruins, we saw some images there. The knife makers and people that fight with the Sicilian knife fighting, all kinds of stuff. We ate the food, we spoke to the people, we, you know, learned the swear words and the gestures and all of the other stuff. So there's some kind, you know, so we can translate that into a game experience, which is as authentic as as everyone's expecting from a Mafia game.
I understand it was probably a million different things, Alex, but when you go there and you're talking to local historians or just people, are they stoked when you're like, we're making a video game about here? They're like, oh, is it positive? They're like,
Yep. Everyone was very excited about the idea.
Yeah?
Yep. I'd say so. Yeah, it was great. Like everyone was very enthusiastic about it, and again, I hope, particularly players in Sicily, we've got the, you know, we took that a little one stage further as well. Like I think our Italian localized version is actually also in Sicilian dialect.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, if you want to kind of like play through in Sicilian for a little bit more of an added vibe. That's there too, which is great, which is really cool. I was playing it last week, and it's it's a different kind of vibe. So, yeah.
Nick, let's pivot to gameplay. Of course, we're all gamers here, right? We love gameplay. That was a big deal to see the gameplay trailer today for the first time. What were you guys trying to get across with the gameplay trailer?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing was to hopefully make it really clear that if you love Mafia, you're going to love Mafia: The Old Country, right? This is classic. This is classic Mafia gameplay, modernized. It's brought to 2025. But if you like it, if you like Mafia, you're going to love this. But the other thing as well was to really show the variety of gameplay as well. The fact that, you know, there's knife fighting now. The combat's much more grounded and gritty. I hope that came across. You know, there's horses as well, which
big deal.
A new thing, right? So, yeah, and the jewels that you saw with the knife. So I think the big thing was, this is familiar, but it's better. And it's, and also I think the other big thing really was just to really give a taste of how this setting gives a new twist on that classic formula. Yeah.
I love that transition. Alex, back on you. Talk to me about combat. We see knife fighting, we see guns. Is it what we exactly expect, or is it a take on it in the Mafia world?
Well, again, we tailored combat to the time period and the setting. We're talking about a time before automatic weapons. But also we're talking about an environment that's very sparse, that's very rugged, and actually another kind of angle we wanted to take on the design is kind of to channel something which was a bit more from the original Mafia game, where combat was a little bit more challenging. It was more tactical. With Mafia 3, we went in a more kind of like bombastic sort of combat direction. We wanted to sort of pare that back, make combat feel more dangerous, kind of like having to survive combat encounters rather than just blasting your way through them. So all of those things are really kind of like designed around the setting and also Enzo's attributes. You know, Enzo as a character, he is this kind of coiled spring, as we describe him, a guy that's a survivor. He survived the mines. So him kind of like scrabbling around, looting for kind of weapons in combat scenarios, for example, gives you a good idea about what it's like to kind of like survive through these combat encounters rather than just kind of shoot to win. Yeah. So in addition, I think we also saw again in the videos, but like the knife is quite a significant new addition in terms of combat. We wanted to make it so that the knife, again, it's kind of a Sicilian tradition. Sicilian knife fighting is very evocative of the time period and of Sicilian gangsters generally. So we wanted to make it so that the knife is more than just a kind of a one-shot kill kind of like animation. You know, it's the player's knife. You can choose from different knives in the game. Each knife has got different attributes and skills associated with it. So you can kind of like, some knives you can throw, some knives give you bonuses in other aspects of combat. And then we've got this knife dueling mode as well, which is new to the game and new to Mafia. So, you know, every now and again you come up against a kind of a boss character in missions and you have a kind of a one-on-one kind of duel to the death with them as well.
That's sick
that's
as fuck.
cool.
Okay. That's awesome. What's not awesome is that there's no Tommy guns. And so I would like to come back to that point, Nick. Thank you very much, everybody. Did you ever play Assassin's Creed? They make shit up all the time. You know what I mean? Here's a wingsuit. Why not? You know what I mean? Well, give me a prototype Tommy gun. But if there are no Tommy guns, Nick, what are we getting into when it comes to firearms? There are guns. We saw them in the trailer.
Absolutely. I think the big difference, you know, guns back in those days, they're less forgiving. You can't just like spray and shoot.
Sure.
Like a Tommy gun as well. So, you know, it's revolvers, it's bolt-action rifles, but it's it's a much more tactical experience. You've got to really think about what you're doing. You know, you're going to be in cover more. You know, as Alex said, really, it's about a feeling of vulnerability, like, you know, really fighting for your life. You know, every bullet counts. You're going to be relying on the knife. You're going to be relying on your guns. But really, it's down to you as a player how you want to play. It's just a much more brutal, grounded experience, I think, than maybe players are used to in a Mafia game. But again, keep saying the word authenticity, but that's what it was like.
And I want to piggyback off that again as we continue to move through what we saw in the gameplay trailer. We talked about the pillar, we talked about this, we talked about vehicles. And then, Tomas, we see vehicles in there, but of course they're far different than the vehicles we've seen before. How do you bring those into this game, make them authentic, but make them fun?
Yeah, obviously the cars are always the major feature of our games since the very first one. So we are taking that very seriously, making the cars authentic also in the Mafia or the old country. So the research was extensive and we are doing our best to find the best possible materials for our references. We are so lucky that in Czech Republic we found a huge museum having all suitable cars for us. So and the owner was so cool that he allowed us not to only take the pictures of the cars, but even take them out, you know, and drive them. So this is the first time we were able to hook up the like dozen microphones all around the car and capture all the possible sounds, not just the engine, exhaust, you know, transmission, but all the creaks of the springs and all the metal shifts of the body of the car. So the sounds of the cars are so rich and authentic that it's amazing.
Let me stop the entire panel and ask, this is something we keep calling out and making a point about it. But to look at you guys, first off, looking like a bunch of goons, but I love it. With all the microphones on these cars and doing all these things, we keep talking about authenticity. Why is that so important? Couldn't we record one car and put the engine on everything and then move on to something else? Why go to this Czech Republic car museum and record each and every one of them 15 different ways?
It's just something we've always done, hasn't it, since the very first? I don't know, this is what we do. Like, all of the guns get their own recordings, the cars, we do the research and all the costumes and everything. Yeah,
it's just doing it better and better.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been important to the franchise to be, you know, authentic. It's part of our kind of DNA, really. It's part of the identity of the of Mafia games, so yeah.
I think as well, we really want players to feel super immersed with the story. And I think the more believable and the more genuine it feels, the more you feel, you know, you can really, fall into the world and it feels like something that is real. And you can't really fake that. I think you need to try and keep it as truthful as possible.
All right. Thank you for the diatribe. You've been nice enough to bring so many slides, and I'm like, you know what, throw them out. Let's talk for a second. I was like, to get back to it and to get back to the cars, Alex, talk to me about driving them. Again, I keep coming back to, they're going to be authentic. Will they be fun?
Of course, yeah. Like this is so. Like we got car chases, just like previous Mafia games. Of course, like it's part of the cinematic storytelling and part of the gameplay experience of all Mafia games. Again, cars are very important to us. But this time we're at the dawn of motoring. That's the turning point between when cars were starting to appear in Sicily. So they're kind of rarer, let's say, but the car chases and all of the car gameplay is, again, very similar to previous Mafia games, I would say, but with the difference that the vehicles themselves are designed to feel like cars of the time period. So they kind of got a heavy kind of handling model and things like that to really kind of evoke those 1900s vehicles.
Now, Nick, of course, you called out the other new vehicle, the horse. Maybe the original vehicle. Talk to me about that, bringing that to Mafia.
Well, we couldn't really set the game in 1905 Sicily without horses, and that's the first thing. But it adds a really interesting dynamic as you explore the world, because the first thing is, like Alex was saying, cars are pretty new. So a lot of the roads that are in the countryside are actually meant for horses and carts. So as you go along, there's kind of choices of which way you take it, and some are more suited for horses, some cars, but you can choose. You can go whichever one you want to. And it's enjoyable. I think that's the main thing. It's about trying to give more enjoyment as you go from A to B and as you explore the world. It feels great and it looks great.
And you have to crank them when they break down, right?
The horses?
No, the cars, you mean. The cars. Sorry.
We could have done that. With a tail, maybe, but I'm not sure.
No.
Anyway,
sorry.
There are multiple ways to crank a horse, all right? Don't worry about that.
I mean, I did wonder where I was going, so yeah, but no, that's right.
Oh, me? Let's get back to hard-hitting journalism. Tomas, the one thing I think that speaks, whether you've seen the game, you know the game, whatever, you watch that trailer and the game looks really good. Are you prepared to go on record and say this is the best-looking Mafia game of all time?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Okay, good. Give me a little bit more than that. What goes into making it look like this?
All right. Our goal was always to set the benchmark for the cinematic quality with our Mafia games. We wanted the player to feel like they are stepping into and playing the classic mob movie in these settings and in this era. So we are creating incredibly detailed environment across Sicily, from the beautiful landscapes down to super detailed architecture. One more feature we are bringing to this Mafia Old Country we didn't have before is the seamless transition. So we are getting seamlessly from the gameplay to the cinematics and back. So all the experience is fluent throughout the whole game.
How much is that benefited by or because of Unreal Engine 5? I know you guys have talked a lot about that in some of the videos we've done, but I've got to imagine that's a big part of it.
So, the technology advanced a lot since the first Mafia.
You don't say. 23 years?
With moving us to Unreal Engine 5, it opens new possibilities we were not able to reach before. The details we are getting now is incredible. The nanite allowing us to model everything, like the environment, characters, cars, everything, that you are losing even the sense and presence of the triangles, polygons. It's so realistic. The lighting is so real and beautiful and makes the overall picture so coherent and pleasant to eyes. And meta-human, allowing us to not just create super real and detailed characters, but how detailed, how precisely we can transfer all this perfect performance from the stage to on the screen with all these micro details and on the facial expression that you can feel and read the emotions even without any spoken words.
And I think, you know, you were the one, of course, to call out, because these chuckleheads, they don't care about the performers. You do. That the Dawn, so much more than just the voice. You guys did mocap these folks,
Yes.
right? Have them in there. Why, I don't say authenticity, why does that matter so much? And what does that bring in? Like, what stories do you have from that?
Authenticity. Thank you. It's authenticity, really.
No, but for bringing them in, do you have, like, moments with them? Like, is that what makes you think this story in cinema goes to a different level? Like, do you have stories about them that you loved?
Can you help me here, Alex, please?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's plenty, of course. Like, there's that moment when the Don's cranking that horse. That, like,
yeah. Oh, we have footage of the cranking of the horse.
No. I don't think we can show that. I mean, I was on the stage for a lot of the mocap, and actually, the thing that really stands out to me when I remember from the shoots is when we were shooting the scene of Enzo and Isabella's first meeting. And obviously that's quite an important moment in the story, and we were, like, literally myself and Matthew Aitken, who's the lead writer on the game, we had been going back and forward for an hour beforehand, rewriting the script, like, still trying to find the right, you know, just the right vibe. They've got, like, I don't know, 40 or 50 words in this thing, and we're writing it over and over again. And when they did the scene, it was amazing. Like, you know, everybody was kind of like hushed on the set. I actually got chills when I was watching them perform it. And I'm really, really looking forward to everybody playing that, because it's a super cool moment. And again, I think indicative of a lot of the character nuance that we're getting from that mocap process.
That's actually something that I think, again, going back to what Thomas was saying about the way we really now capture the non-spoken acting because of the metahuman. Some of these scenes that are really, really, you know, emotional scenes, and maybe in the past you wouldn't have. You know, there's not many words spoken during them, and you wouldn't necessarily get that in the game because the nuances of the face wouldn't be there. But
Sure.
but now they are, and now there are moments that are actually unspoken where you look at it and it really you know hits you. So
The little things
the little
that
things,
make them
exactly,
human,
yeah. The facial movements that you would never normally get.
Alex, you talked about being on set for those mocap moments, and I totally noticed that I didn't do my due diligence. How long have you been working on Mafia: The Old Country? I mean, the team. How long has this game been gestating? We get to this point, it's so exciting to get it out in front of your audience, to start showing gameplay. You know, we were joking back there, Nick. I was like, what did you do since rehearsal? And you were like, I've just been looking at gameplay reactions. Because again, like, I think it's lost on us as gamers, because on our end, there's a new game every week. There's something cool happening, da-da-da-da-da. It's often lost that, yeah, it's been 23 years, but that's 4 games? You know what I mean? How long is this one being worked on? How big of a deal is it for you to be here right now saying, here's our baby?
It's a weird one, actually, because the first pitch for this game, I think I made it about 15 years ago, when we were talking about the Mafia story at large, and the whole idea of telling the story of organized crime through the 20th century, and the idea of going back to the start was there. That was before we decided to do the remake of the first game and things like that. That was part of that pitch even then. We started work on this title just after we finished work on Mafia Definitive Edition. So we'd just sort of taken a bath in Mafia. We'd done the other Definitive Editions as well, kind of sort of discovered what was great about the IP and what we really loved about it. And yeah, so it's been 4 or 5 years of development, but the first part of that was all on paper, really, story development and concept development. So yeah, now actually finally seeing it here and being at the show in particular is like making it very real now. The game's going to come out soon. It's quite exciting.
Congratulations, guys. You know what I mean? What, August is right around the corner, but I digress, of course. Before then, you have to answer to your community. We, of course, reached out. When I say we, I mean you're amazing community managers over here for Mafia: The Old Country. Thank you so much. And said, hey, who's got questions? They've got answers. So we're going to read from this one. Goodfella CLE, which I mean, I assume is Cleveland. You know? Right? Probably?
Maybe.
You're bombing these answers. You have said the game is not open world, but that you can explore areas. Can you elaborate on that? And even though the game is narrative driven, will we be able to explore Sicily in more open areas? How interactive will the world be? Community managers, that was more than one question. Thought it was pretty clear, but let's start with that. It's not open world. I saw a buzz about that today, that it was a linear one, you guys said.
Okay, I'll try and answer that question. So I think the thing with this game is, like Alex said, we started this when we came off Mafia Definitive Edition, and we really took a lot of inspiration by how well, that landed with people, and the fact it's a focused story that takes you through. There's a world around you, but really we're pulling you through the journey. We want these games are made for you to complete. We want you to see the story, right? So that's very much influenced the way we've created this game. So when you're going through Sicily, when you're playing the game, you're going along a golden path. You're seeing the story unfold in front of you. But there are things going on around you in the world. There's if you stop and look around, there's people in the fields harvesting crops. There's people going around their day. You can go off the path if you want and explore elsewhere. So it's kind of, there's this beautiful world around you, but that's not our focus. Our focus has been, let's do a real polished gem, which is just something where it is super high quality, AAA storytelling, super high quality gameplay, and that's the focus. But yeah, there is a environment around you if you want to go and look at it, because it looks absolutely incredible. But yeah, we want you to go through that golden path, that
sure.
main storyline.
I mean, very similar to Mafia 1 and Mafia 2.
Exactly.
I mean, that's like literally the inspiration. We wanted to, we wanted to make a game that was of a similar kind of nature. If you've played those games, if you love those games, the Mafia the Old Country's got a very similar structure.
Yeah. On behalf of me, I love that. That's what I want out of that. I want that tight mob story. So yeah, that's pretty dope. Ebb Educational 2109. You can think of a better name. What types of missions and heists can players anticipate in Mafia the Old Country, and how will they reflect the early era of organized crime in Sicily?
So, we tried to encompass a whole range of stuff when we were designing the game. We've got new scenarios that are entirely specific to the kind of things that happen in Sicily at the time. Actually, we saw some clips there of a kind of a kidnapping mission, which was very common in that time. Bandits would go and kidnap people and kind of hold them to ransom. Not something that commonly happens in American crime. But then we've got sort of similar scenarios to other Mafia games. In some cases, some intentional remixes and revisiting of some similar ideas. I mean, it's assassinations, it's killings, it's shootouts, it's all of the kind of the crime scenarios that you can imagine. And a lot of them have got like a distinctive Sicilian twist, shootouts in Greek ruins or stealth missions in catacombs and crypts, the kind of stuff that really is distinctive to the time and place.
Question for me, just off the top of my head here. When we're talking about this and we're talking about how deep this game is and how many things are going on, the story of this, the horses, the horses, how much, when you look at it and what you guys have right now back at the office, is what you originally envisioned? There's that old adage, right, of like every game's only 60% of the vision. Do you feel like you got above that?
Yeah, I think probably closer to 80%. You never get everything you want, but actually part of our goal here was to to sort of design a game that we could deliver. So it's not more development talk now, but really we got most of what we wanted to get in the can. So I think we're pretty satisfied with that.
Okay. And then, final question. Comes from Game Over Greggy as well. Will there be any returning characters or references to the other Mafia games? You have a community here that loves Mafia, right? You're talking about the pantheon of protagonists. There's obviously, you're prequeling it, so we're going forward, but there's people who could come back and be are we doing that? Are we having that kind of crossover to make fans get excited?
So we've met some of the main characters today. There are additional characters, of course, in the main cast, and there are some returning characters. I'm not going to spoil who those characters are now.
But how many are there?
There's four. Four in-person returning characters. Some of them you're going to have to look quite carefully to find them, but they are there.
They'll be babies. You'll walk by, they'll be in the hospital room.
You can wait and see, yeah.
Would you say horses? No, the horses are new. No horses. Horsepower.
No comment.
No comment on horsepower, all right? We are just about out of time, if you can believe it, but of course, this isn't your last chance to see these fine gentlemen. After this, you can head down. They are going to be doing a signing room on level 0 right after the panel, 3:30 to 4:30. But before I let everybody go, is there anything else, Nick?
Yeah, I've got one more thing to say to everyone. The first thing is, it is just 3 months today until the game comes out. So we are working super hard to bring that to you. As of today, you can now pre-order, and we've got a gift for you all. Those of you that are in here and watching from home, If you scan this QR code, you get a special gift. That knife there, that can be yours. So that's your reward for coming along today. So thank you. And we will see you in Sicily on August the 8th.
Everybody, a round of applause, please, for well, hold on. Everybody's taking get your QR code scanned. You're not going to be able to applaud if you're QR scanning. Sir, how old is your phone? What was taking? Everybody good? All right, round of applause, please, for Hangar 13. Mafia: The Old Country is out August 8th. Have an amazing PAX East. We'll see you at the signing, everybody.